I am honored to introduce our next distinguished guest speaker. Tina Smith serves as a United States Senator for Minnesota. Since coming to the Senate in 2018, she has been a fierce advocate for the people and communities across the state. She has traveled the state, listened to Minnesotans, and turned what she's heard into laws to help the American people. With more than 50 bills and provisions signed into law, her successful bipartisan record has benefited working families, farmers, veterans, businesses, and tribal communities. Her work has helped make healthcare and mental health care more affordable and accessible, expanded much-needed broadband services across the state, and boosted the efforts of schools and teachers to committees including the Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee. I'm going to start that over. Senator Smith serves on 4 Senate committees, including the Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee. She believes that every person deserves affordable, high-quality health care and is fighting to protect, improve, and expand comprehensive healthcare coverage. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Senator Tina Smith.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that kind introduction, and I'm just glad to be able to spend a little bit of time with you. How's your day gone? You had a good day? It's a good, productive day. I see thumbs up. That's good. And I understand that you had an opportunity to hear from my friend and colleague, Chris Murphy, a little bit ago. He and I have done a lot of work on these issues around social isolation together. So I'm sure he was great to hear from. And I'm glad to be able to follow him and back him up. And I think this is the 4th time that I have come to speak with you, although probably some of those times have been virtual. So we'll still count those, but they weren't in person. So I want to just talk a little bit about what's happening and how I think perceptions and understanding of issues around social isolation and loneliness have been changing over the last few years, to which I give you and your advocacy a lot of credit. So I start from the place that every single human being deserves the opportunity for to live a happy and fulfilled life. And that supporting people who are experiencing social isolation, which is so many millions and millions and millions of Americans and people around the world, supporting them, helping them to find connection, that is what connects us to our humanity. I mean, to me, this is the most basic of things. Human beings are wired to want to be connected to one another. And yet there is so much in our society and our culture that drives us apart rather than bringing us together. And I know that this existed before the pandemic, but I think the pandemic exacerbated it, made it so much worse. And I think also that we have to recognize that there are systemic challenges that drive us apart. And if we understand some of those systemic inequities, we can start to see the problem more clearly. I want to acknowledge that I think that our Surgeon General, Dr. Vivek Murthy, has done incredible work helping to raise awareness of this issue and to position this as a public health crisis, and to help people to understand that experiencing loneliness and isolation has serious and profound impacts on people's physical health. And to be able to not think about it as a separate thing is really important. When I first started working on this, I'll never forget, I was working on a bill that would look at the social determinants of health, including social isolation and loneliness that I was trying to line up colleagues to support my legislation. And one of my colleagues said to me, Tina, you can't legislate away loneliness. You can't write laws that make sure that people have friends. And I know it's so glib. So, but yet I kind of understood what they were saying. And I think that it gets at the work that we have to do around raising awareness of this issue. And it also gives us an opportunity to explain, yes, there is much work that we can do to get at the underlying causes of isolation and help people to understand better what impacts that has. And I know that that is all of your work, and that's why you're here today, using your voices and your power to help people understand this. And I'm grateful for our partnership on so many of the things that we've worked on together. And we've passed some important pieces of legislation, particularly legislation addressing issues around social isolation and loneliness amongst our elders. Legislation that we passed during the CARES Act and also during the American Rescue Plan that are helping to support the work of local aging community and aging agencies, for example, to do some of the most basic things like providing exercise classes or virtual connection opportunities for people. One thing that I think helps people to understand this better is if they start to appreciate that there are so many excellent social services projects that we have in this country that have an uncounted benefit of addressing social isolation. I first appreciated this when I was visiting with folks in southern Minnesota that were working on volunteers delivering Meals on Wheels to seniors that were isolated in their homes. And what I learned from that conversation was not only were they delivering nutrition, but they were delivering connection and friendship and a sense of attachment for the individual who's getting the food. But then again, the person who was doing the volunteering was also benefiting by getting that sense of, again, of connection and a sense of purpose that was a huge benefit to them as well. So my call to action for us is to continue to think about this issue in these ways, to appreciate and to describe this as a public health challenge and even crisis, which I think is very much the case, but also to help people to understand how the excellent programs that people might be, that the policymakers might be supporting because, for example, Boys and Girls Clubs are doing an outstanding after-school program to help connect middle school students to job opportunities. Okay, that's all really great, but then, oh, by the way, think of the benefits that that program is providing in terms of fighting social isolation and loneliness amongst middle school students. Today, I had a chance to meet with some incredible, dynamic young women who are part of TRIO, which you may be familiar with, which is connecting especially first generation young people to college opportunities. And they're in that program because it was about figuring out, as the first member of their family, how to navigate the incredible complex and inequitable path of getting into college. But the social connection benefits that they were getting were really incredible and phenomenal. And when you point that out, people sort of can appreciate that more. I think especially for young people right now who are experiencing such a crisis, such a mental health crisis, thinking about the ways in which we can substitute isolating activities like hanging out on social media all day with connecting activities that connect people to their humanity and to friends and peers is really powerful. As I said, Senator Murphy and I will continue to work closely on these issues. I want you all to know that we're going to be reintroducing our bill, which is called, I always think of these bill names, but Improving the Social Determinants of Health Act, which would provide research, provide support for research into the social determinants of health, including social isolation. And this, I think, is going to be incredibly helpful to start to get some data, more data, better data behind the what we know intuitively, which is that when people are connected, they're healthier, they're happier, they have a better sense of purpose in their and a better opportunity to live lives that are fulfilled, and their incredible potential is much more likely to be realized. To me, this is something that I find just to be so important as we think about the deep challenges, as I said a minute ago, the deep challenges for young people, particularly around mental health, to think about addressing social isolation as one of the most important preventative measures we can take. Is so valuable, and I think such a worthy cause for all of us. So your voices here are so important and so powerful, causing policymakers like me to think about things a little bit differently, to help us to lift out of the day-to-day and really appreciate the work that we can do together is just so important. So I'm grateful to all of you. Glad to have a chance to speak with you briefly. And I hope that you have a powerful and useful and energizing and connected visit to Washington. Thank you very much.